Hi, in this section I would like to discuss the various components and parts of an aquaponics system and how they all fit together. It's not just a matter of putting the pieces together, you also have to understand what comes before what. What direction does the water flow? What element comes before what element, and why does it matter? Well, let's start with the fish tank. As you can see the beautiful koi fish behind me here. The fish tank is relatively easy to determine the size of once you've determined how many fish you want to grow. Now there is an average ratio in aquaponics, but through the years we've learned that we can make a system be either fish dominant or vegetable dominant depending on what our needs are. If my desire is to grow a lot of fish, then I can purposely design a fish to grow more fish than the typical ratios involved in traditional aquaponic farms. The reverse is also true. If I decide that I want to grow far more plants than fish are typically grown in an aquaponic system, then I can also design a system to grow more plants than fish would be grown in a typical ratio. Okay, but determining what you want to grow and the space that you have to grow it is going to be step number one. So you want to build an aquaponic system. Where to start? I would highly recommend you start by identifying the available site, its sun exposure, its ease of access, and how you will be able to inspect that system daily. What I mean by that is you don't want your system to be too far away from the traffic flow of your site. So for example, if I'm walking past something every day, I'm going to be looking at it every day. If it's right near my front door, the chances are a lot better that I'm going to be looking at it every day than if it's, 100 feet down the hill. So whenever possible, try to locate your aquaponic system as close to the central hub of activity as possible. Behind me is a great example. This is a business. So not only is it an aquaponics farm, but there are multiple businesses that do sales, services, and offer many, many different products right here on this same site. So because it's a business, the aquaponics system is very much designed to meet the need of the business. And because it's a business that many people are around all the time, the aquaponics system can be located in one of the areas that has a high amount of traffic. And in this case, we want the high amount of traffic to be the people who are working on the aquaponics system itself and the people who are visiting, wanting to learn more about it, or buy more vegetables, or come to see a celebrity chef, or come to learn more about nutrition and healthy eating habits. So this is an excellent, excellent location to put an aquaponics system because there's always someone around to look at it and observe it. Because remember, one of the most important parts of a successful aquaponics system is your ability to observe the system for its health, its operation, and so forth. So once you've determined the best site to build your aquaponics system, now you're going to need to measure the space and determine how much space is available for the growing of your plants and your fish. Let's use an example of 100 square feet. And just use a small backyard aquaponics system as an example. If you only have 100 square feet of growing area, that's not a lot of area to produce much food. And it's definitely not a much area to where you can waste a lot of space raising a lot of fish. So if your goal is to raise the maximum amount of fish in a small space like 100 square feet, then you may start thinking about burying your fish tank or using fish tanks that are taller and require a staircase or a ladder to access. Because by having a smaller tank that's buried, a smaller, taller tank that's buried, you have a larger volume of water which enables you to house a larger number of fish, but not take up any more of the physical footprint of your growing area for plants. So that's one option you have if your desire is to grow more fish. But let's look at this system as a system where the desire is to grow a lot of fish with the maximum amount of plants possible. And when I say possible, I'm strictly going by standard aquaponic procedure, using standard aquaponics ratios, formulas, and successful models that we've seen built around the world for the last 30 to 40 years. So let's start with the core model, and then I'm going to give you some techniques and some methods that you can use in your own garden and to change and tweak those formulas to make it be more fish dominant or more plant dominant. Where are the components located? That is a very important question. Generally speaking, in most systems, it's always a good idea to have your fish tank be the high point of the system. And that's for a variety of reasons. One simple reason is if your fish tank's higher off the ground, it's going to be harder for animals like raccoons to reach in, catch a fish, and have a tasty treat for later. Another reason is it's very easy to climb up a ladder or lean over a tall tank and occasionally check on and feed once a day, because you're only doing that occasionally. But if you have to raise up to a high area where you're growing your plants and you're working on your plants nearly every day, and that's going to make it physically more challenging. So it's always better to locate your grow bed at a lower level and your fish tank at a higher level. Because remember, aquaponics is a continually recirculating system. And once the pump has brought the water to the highest point in the system, you rely on gravity to bring it throughout the various components until it reaches the lowest point of the system where the pump is located, and the water is then pumped back to the fish. So if you locate your fish tank in the highest point of the system, what's going to come next, and why does it matter? It absolutely matters. The next component is going to be a filter. And why is that so important? Now, in a small backyard system, you may be able to get away with one basic filter. In a small commercial system like the one you see behind me, you may be able to get away with a hybrid system, such as the two-stage gravel filter that you see behind me. And as a benefit, you also get to grow additional crops. But any large-scale system, especially those commercial systems that tend to be fish dominant, you're going to want to have a more robust filter system. And the classic University of the Virgin Islands clarifier and net tank is an excellent way to go. And in our other video, the ones that are shot at the Solar Living Institute, you're going to get to see some great examples of how we design, built, and maintain our swirl filter and our cone bottom net tank biofilter mechanical filter as well. Let's talk specifically about the system we have here. This small commercial system is here in Bastrop, Texas. It's maintained by Tyagaraja, and it is an absolutely beautiful and successful system, and it has very simple filtration. Not only that, but the filtration is also an area, like I mentioned before, that we can grow additional plants. One of my favorite plants you see behind me in this particular system is that beautiful tall tree behind me, and that's a plumeria. That is the same flowers that they make the leis out of in Hawaii. So we've covered the importance of having a fish tank and where it's going to be located. And we've covered a little bit about the direction, the flow of the system, where the water flows, and how it flows from one component to the next. So let's talk a little bit about the filter. Now the filter I generally want to have in a mid-range. The fish tank being the highest point of the system, the filter being the midpoint, and then the grow bed being the low point. Remember, traditionally the University of the Virgin Islands system would have a fish tank, a two-stage filter, a degas or blow-off tank, a grow bed, and then a sump. And the sump is the lowest point of the system. But look at that. We got fish tank, we got filter stage number 1, which is called the clarifier, where the solids settle out. We got filter stage number 2, which is called the net tank, where the small water suspended particles are physically and biologically filtered out. We have the fourth section, which is the degas or the blow-off chamber, where simply large amounts of oxygen are added to the water to provide aeration before the water enters the grow bed. We have the fifth section component of the system, which is the grow bed itself, where the plants are growing, the hydroponics section of the aquaponics system, if you will. And then we have the sixth section, which is the sump. So this is 6 separate sections. I've condensed them all down to 2 sections before. But I think it's easy to use a system that only contains a fish tank, a combination filter, which is a 2-stage filter in one, and a grow bed, and the grow bed acts as a sump. So that's turning a 6-component system into a 3-component system, and I highly recommend that. So over the next couple of days, we're going to be converting the system here at the community garden to be a sump-free system. And now, is any system truly a sump-free system? No. We're going to, in this case, use the lowest point of the system, which is the grow bed, to be the sump as well. So, let's talk again about that middle level, that filter. Once the water leaves the fish tank, it flows into the filter. That's gravity taking that water, right? The water is being pumped into the fish tank, and then gravity flows it out of the fish tank and into the filter. Once it flows through the filter, it goes out a standpipe, and gravity takes it to the next stage of filtration. And once it goes through that stage of filtration, it leaves that standpipe and can now enter the grow bed. So let me give you a quick review. So in this scenario, we have a sump. The sump has the submersible water pump located in it. And in this scenario, the sump is the lowest point of the system. So the water is pumped from the sump up into the fish tank. The fish tank obviously is the highest point of the system. The water must be pumped from the sump directly to the fish tank. From the fish tank, it will overflow to the filter, in this case a two-stage filter. From stage 1 of the filter, it will flow to stage 2 of the filter after it leaves the standpipe. From stage 2 of the filter, it will go through the gravel screen and the standpipe and the gravel screen, and it will flow into the grow bed. Okay? From the grow bed, it will go all the way down to the end, and it will go out the standpipe, where it will flow through the return plumbing back to the sump, and the process repeats itself over and over. So once again, to review, water flows from the fish tank out the solids lift overflow to the filter. In this case, it's a two-stage filter, so it flows from the fish tank to stage 1, out the standpipe to stage 2. After it leaves the stage 2 of the filtration, it flows into the grow bed, which would be the 4th stage. And then it flows into the sump, which would be stage 5. Now I'm leaving out something, right? The degas chamber or the blow-off chamber where oxygen is added to the system. I rarely, if ever, use those setups anymore. What I would prefer is a large-scale commercial system, such as the system Tyagaraja has here, where the grow bed is aerated itself. Not only does that eliminate the complexity of a separate system, having to build something, having a separate component, having a separate area to monitor and repair, but it also adds a benefit of having air stones located throughout the grow bed, and the plant roots greatly benefit from the turbulent water moving around the roots and adding large amounts of aeration and oxygen to the roots themselves. So that's a much better approach than the approach that I particularly choose in my aquaponics system, and the one I recommend to my clients and my students.
For trout.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that with me, dude.
Yeah, he's got a wet fishy beard.